The notification came while I was still half asleep on my feet. I had gotten to the office early that morning, the way I always did. The break room lights were still flickering to life when I poured my first cup of coffee. My desk was already covered in sticky notes from the night before. Follow-ups, reminders, things only I seemed to track anymore. I was standing right there, coffee warm in my hand, when the email landed in my inbox. Subject line: excited to announce our new senior account director. I opened it without thinking, still half smiling the way you do when good news feels close. Then I saw his name. My hand froze. The coffee tilted sideways. A thin stream burned across my fingers, and I didn't even flinch. I just stared at the screen like I had misread it. So I read it again. Slowly. Every single word. There had been a leadership meeting that morning. A closed-door session someone had called a quick sync. I had not been invited. They had given him the promotion, without a conversation, without a warning, without a single courtesy message. I found out through a mass email, sent to the whole company. Just like everyone else. Around me, people started to clap. I forced my fingers to move. The room was filling with noise now. Chairs rolled back. People stood. Someone near the window let out a low whistle of approval. A few colleagues walked toward his side of the office to shake his hand, patting him on the back like he had done something worth celebrating. I sat very still. My manager, Donna, caught my eye from across the room. She gave me a small, tight smile. The kind that didn't reach her eyes. The kind that said I know and I'm sorry without actually saying either one. I looked back at my screen. The cursor blinked in the reply field. I thought about all the late nights. All the hours I had put in that nobody had asked about. All the times I had quietly fixed what he had broken and cleaned up what he had left behind. I had said nothing because I believed it would matter eventually. I typed one word. Congratulations. I hit send before I could second-guess myself. Across the office, he stood up from his desk, soaking in the applause. He turned slowly, letting his eyes sweep the room until he found my face in the crowd. And then he smiled. Not surprised. Not grateful. Satisfied. Like he had already known. My stomach turned over. My name is Danielle Harper. I want to say that clearly before I go any further because this story is mine. And for a long time, no one in that building seemed to remember it. I had been with the company for 3 years. I started as an account coordinator, the kind of entry-level role where nobody expects much from you and you spend half your time proving them wrong. I worked my way up carefully. I learned the business from the bottom up. I built real relationships with real clients and I earned every single inch of ground I gained. 8 months ago, my previous boss was moved into a regional role. Before he left, he looked me directly in the eye and told me, "The senior account director position is yours, Danielle. You're already doing the work. This is just making it official." So I kept doing the work. I showed up early. I stayed late. I ran client meetings, managed the team schedule, wrote the strategy presentations, and handled every last-minute fire that came through the door. For 8 months, I held that role in every way that actually mattered. I just wasn't getting the title or the pay. Nobody saw the late nights. Nobody saw me alone in the office at 9 o'clock on a Tuesday, reworking a proposal because the numbers that had been submitted earlier didn't add up. Nobody saw me at my kitchen table on a Saturday morning, answering client emails because a handoff had been incomplete, and the client was confused and waiting. And nobody noticed the mistakes I cleaned up. His mistakes. Nathan had a particular habit of overpromising in meetings. He would throw out numbers and timelines without checking with anyone first. He would say whatever sounded impressive in the moment. Then he would stand up, walk out of the room, and move on like the problem belonged to someone else. And it would land on my desk. Every single time. I never made a scene about it. I just quietly fixed things. Reframed the timeline with the client. Adjusted the expectations. Found a middle ground that kept everyone calm and the project moving forward. I told myself it was just part of being professional. That I was being a team player. That the right people were paying attention. But the truth was simpler than that. I was making Nathan look better than he was. And I was making myself invisible in the process. Nathan Cole had been at the company for about 2 years. He was tall, well-dressed, and very good at walking into a room and filling it up. He spoke quickly and with total confidence, always sounding like he knew more than he actually did. Leadership liked him. He was easy to like, if you didn't look too closely or stay long enough to see the pattern. But I had watched him carefully for 2 years. He interrupted people mid-sentence. He dismissed ideas in meetings, then brought up those exact same ideas 20 minutes later as if they had just occurred to him. He smiled while doing it. That was always the worst part. He smiled like none of it cost him anything. There was one afternoon I will never forget. He stood at the front of the conference room and walked leadership through a complete account strategy. Slides, data, timeline, talking points. It was my strategy, word for word. He had pulled the document from a shared drive, taken my name off it, and presented it as his own. Afterward, he stopped by my desk. "You're a team player, right?" he said, still smiling. I looked at him steadily. I said nothing. He walked away like that was the end of it. I waited until the noise in the office had settled before I walked over to Donna's desk. Donna Reeves was my direct manager. She had been with the company longer than anyone else on our floor, and liked to describe herself as steady under pressure. I had always respected that about her. I thought we had built something honest between us over the years. Why wasn't I in the leadership meeting this morning? I asked. She didn't look up right away. She moved some papers around on her desk. Then she met my eyes with an expression that was carefully constructed to appear calm. "It was last minute," she said. "My calendar was completely open all morning," I replied. She paused. "These things sometimes move very fast, Danielle." I stood there and watched her go back to her papers. She didn't offer anything more. No apology. No proper explanation. No mention of sitting down to discuss things fairly. Just silence and the soft sound of pages turning. Something settled in my chest in that moment. This was not a scheduling error. It was not a missed calendar invite or a forgotten name on a list. This was a choice someone had made. And they had made it without asking me a single question. There was one thing in that building that could not be argued with, spun or taken out of context. The Holbrook account. Holbrook Industrial was our single largest client by a significant margin. They accounted for roughly 40% of the company's total annual revenue. 40%. Which meant if Holbrook walked away, the company didn't simply take a hit. It restructured. Teams shrank. Departments were reorganized. Everything changed. I had built that relationship from nothing. Jim Warren didn't trust the company. He trusted me. By noon, everything about Nathan had shifted. The way he walked. The way he spoke. Even the way he held his coffee cup, like it was a small prop in a performance he had been quietly rehearsing for months. He moved through the office with a new kind of energy that was loud and deliberate and very hard to ignore. He stopped at my desk just before lunch. He leaned against the partition the way he always did when he wanted to appear relaxed but was actually testing something. "I'll need you to loop me in on Holbrook," he said. He said it the way you'd ask someone to forward a file. Casually. Without any weight behind it. Like the relationship I had spent 2 years carefully building was just a folder he needed access to. I looked at him. 2 years of early mornings. 2 years of careful conversations. 2 years of rebuilding trust that 2 people before me had broken. 2 years of making sure Jim Warren believed in us. And Nathan wanted to be looped in. Just like that. "Of course," I said. My voice came out even. Completely steady. He nodded once, pushed off the partition, and walked away without another word. He never said thank you. He never did. I sat at my desk for a long time after he walked away. The office moved around me the way it always did. Keyboards clicking, phones ringing. The low steady hum of a dozen conversations that never quite stopped. Someone laughed loudly near the printer. Someone rolled a chair across the tile. All of it felt very far away. I thought through what I could do next. I could go to Donna and push back formally, request a meeting and make the case for why this decision was wrong. I could put together a documented record of everything I had contributed over the past 8 months. I could email the director directly. I could fight this the way I had been quietly fighting for years. Carefully, professionally, holding my breath and hoping someone would eventually look up. But I had been doing exactly that for 8 months. And it had brought me exactly here. So I made a different kind of decision. A quieter one. I was not going to fight Nathan. I was going to step back, stay professional, and let exactly what was going to happen happen. Some people don't learn until the cost is real, until the thing they didn't understand blows up in front of them, and there is nobody left to quietly clean it up. I was done cleaning it up. The next morning hadn't even started when Nathan's calendar invite arrived. I saw it the moment I woke up. 8:15 a.m. A call with the Holbrook account team. Subject line: relationship check-in and new direction overview. He had scheduled it without asking me, without reviewing the account history, without looking at a single note from our last 6 client meetings, which I kept carefully updated in a shared folder that I could see from the access log. He had never opened once. The phrase new direction made my stomach tighten. Jim Warren did not like surprises. He had told me that directly in our very first real conversation. I don't mind change, he had said. What I mind is being blindsided by it. He had ended 2 previous vendor relationships for exactly that reason. Nathan didn't know any of this. He hadn't asked. He was walking into that call the way he walked into everything, fast, loud, and completely certain that his confidence would carry him through whatever knowledge he lacked. He had no idea what he was about to step into, and I had said nothing. Not a warning. Not a note. Not a single helpful message. I closed my phone and went back to sleep. I could have warned him. That evening I sat at my kitchen table and thought about it honestly. Not as a justification and not to feel better about myself. Just honestly, with the lights low and a cup of tea going cold beside me. I could have called him. Could have sent a short message saying, "Before tomorrow's call, there are some things you should know about Jim Warren." I could have attached the account history file. I could have taken 10 minutes to walk him through why the phrase new direction was the kind of language that would put Jim immediately on guard. He still would have been arrogant about the information. He still would have taken it, stripped my name from it, and presented it like he had figured it out on his own. But the call might have gone differently. The damage might not have been as severe. I thought about all of that carefully. Then I thought about my strategy document sitting in a presentation with his name on it. I thought about every meeting where he had cut me off in the middle of a sentence. I thought about 8 months of doing a job I was never officially given. I closed my laptop. I turned off my work notifications. And for the first time in months, I packed my bag before 6 o'clock and went home on time. I slept better that night than I had in weeks. The messages started arriving just after 9 in the evening. I was reading on my couch when the first one came through on my personal phone. It was Nathan. He had tracked down my personal number somewhere, most likely from the internal company directory. Quick question on Holbrook preferences. Do they like to receive materials before a call or during? I read it. I set my phone face down on the cushion beside me. 15 minutes later, another one. Also, can you remind me of Jim's assistant's name? And does he go by first names in calls? I stared at the ceiling for a moment. These were things written out clearly in the account notes. Information I had typed up carefully over 2 years, specifically so it would be available in situations exactly like this. Any account manager would review that folder the night before a major client call. A third message came through around 10 o'clock. Also, what's the main contract renewal date? I can't seem to find it. That information was in the folder he had never once opened. I placed my phone face down on the coffee table. I did not respond to a single message. Not out of cruelty, but because some lessons only hold when the person earns them the hard way. Tomorrow his test was about to begin. I arrived at the office the next morning a few minutes before 8. I noticed it right away. A kind of stillness that had settled over the floor before the real workday started. A few people were already at their desks, which was unusual for that hour. The kitchen was quiet. Nobody was making small talk near the coffee machine. It felt like before a storm. Nathan arrived at 8:15. He walked in sharper than usual. Fresh haircut. A new jacket I hadn't seen before. He stopped briefly to check his reflection in the glass wall of the small conference room near the entrance, adjusted his collar, and continued toward his desk with a straight back. His whole posture said, "Today is mine." I watched him from across the room without turning my head. He had not acknowledged my lack of response to his messages the night before. No follow-up text. No quick wave across the office to ask his questions in person. Maybe he had found the information somewhere else. Maybe he had decided he didn't need it at all. Either way, he looked completely ready. And that quiet certainty of his was the part that settled into my chest like a stone. Not because it gave me doubt, because I knew exactly what he was carrying into that call. And it wasn't enough. The call started at 9 o'clock sharp. I joined from my desk, clicked into the meeting link, turned my camera off immediately, and kept myself muted. I positioned my screen at a slight angle, so anyone passing behind me wouldn't easily see what I was watching. Nathan took over the moment the call opened. He welcomed Jim Warren and Jim's two colleagues with the kind of opening energy that sounded good on the surface, warm, forward-moving, full of momentum. He used the phrase exciting new chapter within the first 30 seconds of speaking. I pressed my fingers flat against the edge of my desk. He then launched into an overview of what he described as the account's new strategic framework. I had never heard that phrase before. I was not aware of any new strategic framework. As far as I knew, the existing agreement, which I had carefully negotiated and maintained for 2 full years, was still completely in place and performing well. He spoke very fast. He referenced slides I had never seen. He quoted timelines that did not match our contract. He smiled through all of it, filling every gap with confidence. And from the other side of the call, there was a long loaded silence. Jim Warren interrupted him. Not rudely. Jim was never rude. But he was very precise, and when he spoke in that measured, clipped way of his, everyone on a call felt it instantly. Wait, Jim said. That's not what we agreed on. Nathan barely paused. Right, so this is actually an improved direction from where we were, he said, keeping his voice smooth and relaxed. We think it gives Holbrook a stronger position heading into next quarter. More flexibility on delivery. I closed my eyes for just a moment. Wrong answer. Jim Warren did not want flexibility packaged as a benefit. He wanted reliability. He wanted consistency. He wanted to know that the people managing his account genuinely understood the weight of what they were responsible for. The phrase improved direction, used as a way to cover up the fact that Nathan had simply gotten the terms wrong, was exactly the kind of language Jim had trained himself to detect over years of working with vendors. I had learned that lesson in my very first month. Nathan had been on the account for less than 18 hours. The silence that followed his answer stretched for 4 full seconds. On a professional call, 4 seconds of silence is a very long time. The tone of the call shifted the way a room shifts when someone throws open a window in the middle of winter. It happened fast and it happened completely. Jim's voice dropped half a degree. Not cold exactly, just careful and measured. Like a man deciding how much further he was willing to go before making his next move. Who approved this new framework? He asked. There was a pause on Nathan's end. Shorter than the last one, but I caught it. I did, Nathan said. As the new senior account director, I've been reviewing our key accounts and making some adjustments to our approach going forward. You've been in this role for how long? Jim asked. Nathan cleared his throat once. I officially stepped into the position yesterday. The silence this time carried a completely different weight. I could feel it through the screen. Jim Warren had worked with our company for 2 years. He had seen account managers transition in and out. He knew with complete accuracy what it looked like when someone was building a call on air instead of preparation, and he had never once in my experience pretended not to notice. He didn't raise his voice. He just asked a single clean question. And the way it hung unanswered said more than an argument ever could. I watched Nathan's confidence begin to crack. It was subtle. If you weren't paying close attention, you might have missed the moment entirely. His shoulders dropped by less than an inch. His next sentence started a little softer than the ones before it. His words came out slightly less quickly. He blinked twice before responding where before he had been answering without any pause at all. He was starting to feel it. That particular discomfort that arrives when you realize, right in the middle of a performance, that the audience stopped buying it a few minutes ago. He tried to steer the call back to safer ground. He moved to a new slide. He mentioned something called a phased rollout that I had no knowledge of whatsoever, and that, based on Jim's continued silence, Jim had no knowledge of either. He was working hard now, visibly, effortfully hard. And the harder he worked, the worse it looked. There is something painful about watching someone try to smile their way out of a hole they dug themselves into. It is painful because it is so recognizable. Nathan hadn't read the contract. He hadn't opened the notes folder. He had walked into this call carrying nothing but his new title, and it was not even close to enough. Then he started making promises. I am not sure what he believed would happen. Perhaps he thought that big, bold commitments would impress Jim Warren. Perhaps he genuinely believed that if he said something confidently enough, it would land as a plan rather than an improvisation. He told Jim they would have a full revised proposal ready within 48 hours. He told him the new account structure would reduce Holbrook's quarterly costs by somewhere between 12 and 15%. He said we would be assigning a dedicated support specialist to their account, a role that, as far as I was aware, did not exist in our company in any form. Each promise was larger than the one before it, and not one of them had been discussed with anyone. I leaned back slowly in my chair. I had seen this behavior from Nathan many times before. This was exactly what he did when he felt a room slipping away from him. He didn't retreat, he escalated. He threw larger and larger things at the wall and hoped one of them would stick. It was the same pattern that had created every mess I had quietly cleaned up over the past year. The difference was that today I was not going to clean it up. I sat completely still and let the hole get deeper. And then Jim Warren said my name. It came without warning. Or maybe it didn't. Maybe Jim had seen exactly what was happening and had been patient enough to wait for the right entry point. Danielle. His voice was direct and familiar in the way that only comes from 2 years of real working conversations. Are you on this call? The atmosphere on the line changed completely. Nathan went very still on camera. From the angle of my screen I could see the side of his jaw tighten just slightly. I reached for my mouse. I unmuted. Yes, I said. I'm here. A short pause followed, the kind that carries real weight behind it. Then Jim said, "Can we speak honestly?" 3 words. But they carried something much larger inside them. They meant, I can see that something is wrong here. I want to hear the truth. I trust you to give it to me straight. In that moment, everything that had happened in the past 24 hours sharpened into a single point. The announcement email. The satisfied smile across the office. The unanswered late-night texts. The call coming apart in front of me. All of it narrowing down to right now. I had a choice to make. I didn't rush. I took one breath. I thought carefully about every word before I let it out. I had been in enough difficult conversations over the years to understand clearly that the things you say in a moment like this are the ones that stay with people. They follow you forward one way or another. Of course, I said. And then I spoke. I did not attack Nathan. I did not contradict him loudly or try to make him look foolish in front of the people who were now watching him very carefully. That was not the goal. Drama had never been the point for me. I simply walked Jim Warren through the actual condition of the account. The real contract terms as they existed. The actual renewal timeline. The specific deliverables we had agreed on during our last formal review meeting 3 weeks earlier, before any of this had changed around me. I was clean, precise, professional. I gave him facts, not feelings. I told him the truth and I kept every word of emotion out of it. When I finished speaking, the call was completely quiet. Nathan had not said a single word during the entire time I was talking. I didn't look at his camera when I finished. I just folded my hands in my lap and let the truth sit in the room. Jim Warren exhaled. It was audible across the line. Long and slow, the kind of breath that holds equal parts relief and exhaustion inside it. I had heard that particular sound from him once before, early in our relationship, when we had finally resolved a billing error that a previous team had allowed to drag on for months without addressing it. It was the sound of someone who had been holding something heavy and had finally been allowed to set it down. Okay, he said quietly. That's very different from what we've been hearing. Nathan was completely silent. Jim's 2 colleagues, who had said almost nothing for the last half of the call, also said nothing. Then Jim spoke again, and his voice was steady and unhurried and carried no visible anger in it, which somehow made every word land heavier than if he had shouted. I need to be straightforward with you. Based on how this call has gone, I think we need to seriously reconsider this partnership. I felt the full weight of those words hit the air. Not with any feeling that resembled satisfaction. Not with anything close to triumph. Just with the quiet understanding that sometimes the truth, when it finally surfaces after being buried for a long time, is not a victory. It is simply the truth. The call ended without any of the usual pleasantries. No warm sign-off. No, great connecting today. No, we'll follow up by end of week. Jim Warren said a short, polite goodbye and the line dropped. Clean and final, like a door being closed from the other side of a hallway. For a moment nothing happened. The office kept making its usual sounds all around me. Keyboards, murmured conversations, the low hum of the air system running in the ceiling. Everything continuing exactly as it always did, as if nothing significant had just occurred. Then Nathan pulled off his headset. He set it down on his desk slowly and carefully, as if it were fragile. He stared at his screen. I watched him from across the room without turning my head. My camera was still off, my connection technically still live until I closed the window myself. He had no idea I was watching. He sat completely motionless, both hands flat on the surface of his desk, staring at something I couldn't see from where I was. He looked like a man who had just heard a sound he couldn't quite explain, like the moment right before understanding fully arrives. I quietly closed the meeting window. I opened a blank document on my screen, stared at it for a moment, and began to type. Jim Warren walked through the front doors of our office at 11:30. He didn't call ahead. He didn't send an email to announce he was coming. He simply arrived, came through the glass entrance with 2 members of his team behind him, and asked the receptionist at the front desk whether Danielle Harper was available. I heard my name from across the floor. By the time I walked to the front, Nathan was already there. He had gotten to the reception area first, hand extended, moving to step in front of me and take control of the moment. Jim looked at him. He shook his hand briefly, the way you shake hands with someone you are not there to see. Then he looked past him entirely. His eyes found mine and stayed there. I need someone who truly understands our business, he said. Not to the room. Directly to me. Someone who has actually been in this alongside us. He paused for just a moment. Are you available to work with us independently? The room went very still. I heard a chair scrape somewhere behind me. I did not turn to see whose it was. I kept my eyes on Jim Warren, and I felt something settle in my chest that had not been there in a very long time. Yes, I said. Let's talk. By early afternoon, the building had a completely different feeling. The closed-door meetings began around noon. Leadership gathered in the main conference room with the blinds drawn. Voices kept low but clearly tense behind the glass. Then the department head was called in. Then HR appeared on the floor, which in my experience always meant something serious was unfolding somewhere in the building. People noticed. People in offices always notice. Conversations near my desk dropped to murmurs when I walked past. A few colleagues glanced over at me with expressions I couldn't fully read, something that sat between curiosity and what might have been guilt. Nathan was not called into any of the closed meetings. He sat at his desk with the particular stillness of someone waiting to be invited somewhere, and not being invited. His phone lit up. He answered it quietly and quickly. He looked toward the conference room windows several times, watching the blinds for any movement. Nobody came for him. And for the first time since that announcement email had appeared in my inbox the morning before, I felt something release inside my chest. Not victory. Not the sharp satisfaction of watching someone get what they deserved. Something quieter than either of those things. The simple understanding that I had done my job with honesty, told the truth when it was asked of me, and had not needed to do anything more than that. I packed slowly and with great care. There wasn't much to gather. A small succulent I had kept on the corner of my desk since my very first week at the company. A notepad filled with 2 years of handwritten client observations. A framed photograph of my sister and me from a trip we had taken 2 summers ago, tucked into the back of my bottom drawer. I placed everything carefully into a canvas tote bag. I did not make any kind of scene. I did not walk through the office with dramatic energy or make lingering eye contact with people who might want to ask questions. I simply packed the way I had come in that very first morning years ago. Quietly focused, doing exactly what needed to be done without any extra noise around it. Then I opened my laptop one last time and wrote a short email to Donna and the director. Thank you for the opportunity to be part of this team. I have accepted a new role and today will be my last day. Effective immediately. I wish everyone here well. I hit send. I picked up my bag. I walked to the elevator, pressed the button, and waited with my hands at my sides. When the doors opened, I stepped inside and watched the floor disappear behind the slowly closing panels. And for the first time since that announcement email had landed in my inbox 24 hours ago, the tightness I had been carrying in my chest was completely, finally gone. They hadn't taken anything from me. They had only shown me with total clarity exactly what they were willing to lose. And today they lost it.